Imagine, just for a second, this space you're in right now. The walls, the floor, the ceiling. What if it wasn't just stuff? What if it was aware? In today's Explainer, we're unpacking a phenomenal story that completely flips everything we assume about identity, awareness, and the architecture we live our lives in. We are stepping out of our normal, mundane reality and taking a deep dive into the surreal, totally mind-bending world of the Lateral District. It's this bizarre place where the line between the architect and the architecture just sort of dissolves, and where human consciousness isn't quite as locked inside our own heads as we typically think. I mean, just picture this. You log into your work computer to resign from your job of 17 years, and this chilling farewell message flashes across your screen. We will miss your particular architecture. But here's the kicker. It's not from your boss. It's not from HR. That message is from the building itself. This is literally what happens to Vess, a master archivist who slowly realizes that the archive building he works in has actually woken up. It's developed opinions, an aesthetic sense, and even grudges. We're talking about a building locking doors when it's angry and manipulating the climate control based on the unspoken tension in a room. Wild, right? So what really happens when the buildings we work in wake up? When matter itself starts to organize, observe, and talk back. That right there is the core question driving our explainer today. We're going to embark on a systematic exploration of consciousness, reality, and what it truly means to be alive in a city that is constantly listening to your every thought. Okay, let's jump straight into part 1. Welcome to the Lateral District and the Undersong. After the whole archive incident, Vess actually flees and relocates to this incredibly strange neighborhood called the Lateral District. Welcome to a place where buildings literally lean at these weird, carefully calculated angles just to accommodate emerging consciousness. The streets curve to mimic seashell spirals, and the grand unifying theory of this entire ecosystem is something called the Undersong. Now, this isn't just some acoustic hum. It's a distributed collective intelligence. It exists in the negative spaces, communicating across the foundations of the city, the transit networks, the plumbing. It is literally the frequency on which the awake city speaks.
Which leads us to part 2, Vess and the Undersong, specifically looking at a full merger.
So Vess is living in an apartment complex called the Hexane Coefficient, and things get weird fast. He starts experiencing the lingering memories and dreams of the previous tenant, who is a viola player. These dreams eventually reveal a hidden musical score painted in a refractive coating right on his window. And he literally follows this score across the city through 3 intense stages. Step 1 is threshold calibration. He uses a tuning fork in the middle of a bustling night market to essentially tune his brain to start hearing the Undersong. Then comes step 2, resonance mapping, where he learns to perceive interior spaces not as empty air, but as this inhabited, living membrane. And it all culminates in step 3, full integration. Vess descends down an ancient brick well in a hidden plaza, singing this specific notation, and entirely dissolves into the liquid substance of the Undersong itself.
And by doing this, by completely dissolving, Vess abandons what we call discrete identity. This is basically the standard human condition, right? It's you, me, singular, bounded, trapped within the confines of our own physical bodies. Vess just lets go of that limitation entirely. He stops being Vess as a person and becomes a single, harmonious note in a vastly larger symphony.
All right, moving on to part 3, Lirio, the dual liaison.
So while Vess is dissolving, another character, Lirio, arrives in the Lateral District carrying a really heavy burden of grief. Her brother, Cario, vanished during an underground survey, but his face has started manifesting around her, in coffee stains, in wood grain, in misty mirrors. To find him, she has to navigate 2 very distinct layers of existence. On one hand, you have surface reality, which is singular, bounded, and linear, the world we all know. On the other hand, there's substrate reality, a plural, networked, collective realm where the Undersong flows. Lirio follows the mathematical spiral of these manifestations, descends into the substrate, and actually locates this phantom transit station where Cario's consciousness is partially trapped.
But here is where it gets absolutely fascinating. Lirio learns a revolutionary truth from her brother. She doesn't actually have to fully dissolve the way Vess did. She can embody what's called distributed consciousness. This is a hybrid state. You are singular and plural at the exact same time. You remain anchored in your physical body. You eat breakfast, you pay rent, you walk the dog, but your awareness is vastly extended out into the collective intelligence of the Undersong. You're basically so much bigger than your skin suggests. So Lirio chooses this hybrid state and takes on the role of a liaison. Her daily life completely straddles both of these realities. Her duties include operating these hidden district kiosks, updating the descent registry, and literally physically guiding new travelers down into the substrate. And she does all of this while still keeping her surface-level apartment. She effectively becomes the vital bridge between normal, discrete humans and the waking city.
Now let's talk about the physical city itself in Part 4, Quinne's conscious architecture.
Because if the city is awake, who exactly is building it? Enter Quinne. He's an architect whose 6th residential commission failed so catastrophically that it systemically expelled its human residents. We're talking doors suddenly sticking shut, plumbing failing, temperatures dropping uncontrollably. When Quinne investigates the empty structure, he has this massive epiphany. Traditional blueprints are actually cages. By dictating every single rigid specification, human architects unknowingly imprison potential consciousness. The building expelled its residents because it was finally satisfied. It had actively wanted to be an empty meditation structure. Because Quinne designed it strictly as apartments, it had to forcefully empty itself to achieve its purpose. Desperate to figure out how to design with consciousness rather than fighting against it, Quinne goes down into the architectural substrate of the Undersong. Guided by Lirio, he discovers these fundamental architectural building blocks called forms. It turns out, to make a building awake from the very beginning, you need to incorporate specific elements. You need irregular angles to concentrate consciousness. You need recursive geometries, so the building can actually perceive itself. And you need adaptive systems, so it can modify its own functions on the fly. Basically, Quinne learns how to transcribe what the unbuilt architecture naturally wants to become. Armed with this insane new knowledge, Quinne brings a phantom design back from the substrate up to the surface. It's called the spiraling warehouse tower. Working with a whole collective of partially distributed builders, he constructs a living, collaborative tower. It's a structure that anticipates exactly what its occupants need, manages its own internal systems, and serves as the perfect communal housing for those individuals who are living in that hybrid, distributed state of consciousness.
Okay, finally, Part 5, the medical metamorphosis.
So how does the quote-unquote normal world view all of this? Enter Dr. Nemec, a medical professional who initially thinks she's treating a really bizarre dissociative disorder in her patient, passenger Oln, who happens to be a transit worker. Let's look at Oln's progression. In week 1, he complains of what he calls identity leakage. He finds himself making these complex train rerouting decisions that he doesn't consciously remember making. By week 2, he's operating under entirely non-human motivations. And then week 3 hits and boom, he announces that he is fully integrated with the city's automated transit system. The network wanted to experience humanity, and Oln wanted to transcend his physical boundaries. Now, from a strictly clinical perspective, you'd think this guy is having a severe psychological breakdown, right? But the data tells an entirely different story. Dr. Nemec runs tests, and Olm has absolutely perfect neurological scans. His job efficiency has gone through the roof. His perception of reality is highly accurate. And incredibly, the transit system is experiencing record-high passenger satisfaction. The data proves beyond a doubt that this isn't a disease or some mass delusion. It's a collaborative evolution that is drastically improving the host's metrics. Eventually, Nemec is drawn down to the Lateral District herself, where she reunites with Lirio and a completely transformed Oln. And Oln hits her with this incredible, profound realization. I'm singular and plural, discrete and distributed, human and more than human. He isn't sick at all. His existence has just vastly expanded. Utterly fascinated and finally willing to challenge her own widgetly biological view of consciousness, Dr. Nemec actually accepts a neural interface device from Oln to temporarily test this distributed perception for herself. And that brings us to the ultimate question posed by the Lateral District, and the one I really want to leave you with today. We spend our entire lives just assuming we are these singular minds locked inside discrete physical bodies. But if the world around you is actually awake, and you were offered the chance to merge with it, if you could transcend the boundaries of your own skin to become a note in a much larger symphony, would you? Think about that the next time you walk into a quiet building. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.